Welcome to Two Travel Dads Podcast. Here we share our favorite destinations, travel tips, stories from our adventures, and bring on awesome guests to share insights into their travelsome lives. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and check out our detailed show notes at twotraveldads.com/podcast-episodes. Hey, welcome back to another episode of Two Travel Dads Podcast. I'm Rob, your most loyal host. I say most because we have lots of hosts and hostesses, and we've got somebody back who's been on here many times, my bestie, Kelly.
Hey.
Who resides in Maine. So today we are going to kind of just chat about Maine. I love visiting Maine. It's really fun to go up there and see them and see lobster things and all that. So, yeah, I think we should just kind of dig into MidCoast, Maine, because that, when I think of Maine, that's what I think of.
Yeah, definitely.
It's that extremely lighthousey, lobster trappy, windy roads that'll make you sick if you're looking at your phone when somebody else is driving sort of place. You know what I mean.
I do. Also, I just would like to add, not those roads are not great for bike riding or walking around.
Oh.
So don't come to Maine to ride your bike along the road because there is no sidewalks.
Yeah. In fact, that's actually a good question. So why do people come to Maine? Because clearly, as you've said, they don't come to Maine for biking. What is the Maine, the M-A-I-N draw to M-A-I-N-E?
Well, there's many draws, especially in the summer months. Many people who live on the East Coast, specifically New York, Washington, D.C., will often have a summer place up in Maine. They call them camps. Sometimes they don't have heat, so they're a place to come in the summer for a month or so. There's beautiful kayaking, tons of little islands around to get out to with boats and ferries. There's ferry boat rides also. I think probably the main draw is just the quintessential old buildings and the way Maine's slogan is "the way life should be."
Which is funny because Oliver says that Maine's slogan is "Maine closed on Tuesdays."
And that is true as well as from about, I'd say, November through Memorial Day. There is not much going on. All you have to do in Maine to be successful is stay open. So.
Do you feel like the mindset of full-time residents in Maine is just, let's just have a business that the tourists can support and then we'll take a long nap for a few months? Or
I think a lot of people come down here, actually. I think that's maybe a goal I'm striving for as well.
I mean, it's true. We do get a big influx from Maine and New York State. That's very true, actually.
Massachusetts.
In Massachusetts, yeah. And Michigan.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, which I don't blame them. If I lived in Michigan, I would come down here in the winter as well.
Yeah.
So, with that, quintessential Maine. To me, that is all those sort of nautical sorts of things. Mm-hmm. Is there one town in particular in MidCoast? So, actually, before we dig into that, Maine, when we're talking about coastal Maine, that goes from like the New Hampshire border up to the border of Quebec, so U.S.-Canada border. How many sections do Mainers kind of consider that? Is there like South Coast, Mid Coast, North Coast, down east? Like, what's the scoop?
I think what you mostly hear people refer to is Mid Coast and down east. So when you hear the funny saying, "You can't get there from here," oh God, don't put that out there. I can't pretend that I can do a Maine accent.
Oh, that's so funny.
You can't get there from here because you can actually, in a boat, you can go directly from Mid-Coast, say Rockland, where we spend a lot of time or live close to, directly over to Bar Harbor in a boat in maybe an hour. And to drive
it's
to it,
like 2.5 hours.
maybe even less than that. And in a boat, or I'm sorry, in a car, it's like 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
So that's what that means. You have to go up and then down and around to get to Bar Harbor.
So there's kind of like 4 sections to the coast then. So there's like the south where you've got like Saco, Ogunquit, things like that.
Right.
And up to, would you say that goes how far? Like to Portland or to Freeport? Like
Probably Portland, and then it starts to get more mid-coasty as you go
Yeah.
north of that.
So you got
And
like
then
Freeport, and then the town that starts with an S.
Saco?
No. What's it called? Actually, never mind. It doesn't start with an S. It starts with a D. Damascata.
Damascata, yes.
Damascata.
So cute. I do like Damascata.
Your favorite place or Jeff's favorite place? Wiscasset.
Oh, yeah. Well, Red's Eats is the problem there.
Mm.
So if you ever go to Red's Eats because you've been told to go and you're just standing there innocently in line and someone goes by and gives you the finger, it's because that location has caused a lot of traffic and it's pretty unnecessary to just have a business cause traffic. So I think it could be remedied easily. So the locals feel thus, and they give you the certain finger when you're standing there in line innocently to buy your $35.
So most of most of Maine, like mid-coast Maine, there's not an interstate going around from little town to little town. So it's all, Highway 1 and then other little like spur roads and stuff like that. So the way that it goes as you're going through these little towns, you literally drive through the downtown of like everywhere. And then when you get to Wiscasset, Red's Eats that she's talking about is a lobster lobster booth, lobster stand on the corner right before you cross the river. And people line up for, is it mediocre or is it not good or is it great if you've never had it?
Honestly.
Have you actually had one?
No.
Oh.
Gosh, I think my husband would divorce me if I stood in that line. But really, the local people in MidCoast many of them are from lobstering families, and you'll hear them refer to lobsters as bugs because they are underwater bugs. And it's, generations that have harvested them off of the bottom of the ocean, and they don't even eat them that often, from what I understand. But they are delicious, so I'll take
we have
one
them
of those
whenever we
lobster
come
bugs
up.
anytime.
Okay, so we're kind of working our way up the coast. So you got South Coast, you got Mid Coast that goes from about Portland or Freeport up to Camden, and then it starts to turn to that down east as you like go through like Belfast and over to Bar Harbor.
I think honestly, for
it's kind of a sketchy
talk,
map
we should get
area.
Jeff on here.
Yeah. And then there's that north section that is, it starts to go up towards Newfoundland and Quebec, and you've got rivers, you've got Lubeck. So, but let's talk all about Midcoast. So, what is your favorite place in all of Midcoast Maine to spend the day?
I love to get on the kayak and head out to some of the little remote islands where there are no people. And so we do that.
I like to be in Maine when there's nobody.
No, even when there is a lot of people, there's so many little beautiful beaches you can just kind of kayak to and around. And there's a lot of kind of safe feeling sea kayaking because of the little islands that are off the coast there. So definitely my kayak is the favorite place that I like to be in the summer months.
I really do enjoy going kayaking out of your cove.
Yes.
Because you've got, what do we see? We see 3 lighthouses or 2 lighthouses?
You can see, I think, 3 from
and you can paddle around the Whitehead Island Lighthouse, which was super duper cool.
Yeah, last year when you were there, remember there had just been a big sighting of a huge shark right there?
Oh, yeah. You were
so courageous.
You were a little paranoid about that.
I was. I don't want to be shark snacks.
No, and we did see sharks. We saw seals.
We saw seals.
Lots of seals.
Did we get to see a sunfish?
No.
We didn't. We went on a...
Someday we'll see a sunfish. Maybe this summer we'll see a sunfish.
Yeah, let's make that happen. I'd love to get on a lobster boat with you and go out and see if we
I'm
can
always down.
Get some lobster.
So your favorite thing is being on the kayak, which I totally get. I appreciate and I enjoy as well, especially because it's not scary kayaking, which sometimes sea kayaking can be scary. Like if you go on Puget Sound or in the San Juan Islands in Washington, some of those currents are terrifying.
Yeah, I mean, you still want to know what you're doing and wear a life jacket, but if you stay close to the shore and go around the little islands that are right there in the mid-coast, Rockland, Camden even, and then also you can get on a sailboat, which I haven't done yet, but I'd love to get on a big sailboat, and you can go for like just the afternoon or even a 4-day
A big sailboat, like a schooner?
Like a schooner, yes.
Ooh.
Yeah, the building I work in actually, Sharps Point Wharf, Mr. Sharp, who's always there. He's about 91, I think, and he's still very active in his building. He was touted as being the one that brought schooners to MidCoast, Maine. So,
Ooh.
yeah.
Ooh, that
Yeah.
sounds fun. And I know that in the summertime there is the big boat in Camden that in the winter goes down to Key West. The
Oh,
what is it? The Sunny Apple or the Apple Boy, Apple Bunny, Apple. I'll find it and I'll put it in the show
thank you.
notes.
Yes, I'll need to research.
But yeah, so in the summer it's up in Maine and Camden, and then in the winter it comes down to Key West.
Oh, maybe I can work on that. That'd be easy
Ooh,
commute.
that's how you can work it.
I like it.
So my favorite thing to do when we come and visit you guys in the summer, I love getting out on boats too, but I'm such a sucker for tours, and my favorite one, I think, it's tough because we saw so many whales last summer when we went out of Booth Bay Harbor.
Oh, I love Booth Bay.
That was amazing. We saw fin whales, and we saw gray whales, and a humpback, and we saw porpoises,
That was
and
really
then
great.
we saw puffins, and it was awesome. But I think that the tour that I enjoyed more was the one we did with Mohegan Boat Lines out of
Port Clyde,
Port Clyde. That's what it was.
which I would like to mention, people should probably know to take off of their itinerary this year because
Yeah.
there was an awful fire last.
Wait, so
I think it was the end of last summer.
is the little dock at the marina closed? I know that the general store all burned down and
The
stuff.
boat line actually is still going, but
Oh, okay.
there's no longer a store,
Mm.
and the dip net's gone. It's just a really tiny little town already, and now
Yeah.
there's not much to do there.
But then
so,
also, since it is so tiny, and since people aren't going there for Linda Bean's
yeah.
little store and stuff, maybe it's a good way to support that local
Yeah,
business.
definitely. You do want to just book it and get there for
Yeah.
that. But
So it's not necessarily a hangout town anymore.
Yeah, no.
Not for now.
Not for now. It will be reborn eventually.
Yeah.
I don't think it's slated until probably summer
Yeah.
ahead of this one.
But what I really liked about that boat and where, you go out of that perfect little Maine looking town, which, has changed, like you said.
Yeah.
But that's where we got to do the thing where we actually got to they pulled in the lobster traps.
Yeah.
And they actually had lobster, they caught them, and we all got to see them and see how they do everything and check all that. And I thought that was super cool and culturally significant. And then we got to dink around through the whole Wyeth compound on those islands out there.
Yeah.
I thought that was cool.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. The Wyeths are still involved in the community. I think that's a part I really love is that a lot of the family names that you see on, street signs and town names, their families are still there.
Yeah.
I think that's a part that's really charming about it too, is it's just really has not changed much for many years. And so it's been a part of people's summers. If you live on the East Coast, people will come up to Maine to get away from it all. And that's definitely what you do because there's really mostly nature things to do. There's the town of Rockland and the town of Camden. But as far as entertainment and stuff like that, I would definitely come for Jazz Fest or Blues Fest if you,
You
want
have
a little
some
more.
year-round entertainment.
I do.
Yeah. You've got that candle pin bowling, don't you?
Oh, right. Yes,
That's
is
a
kind of special
super
place.
Maine thing.
That hasn't changed for years either.
What is it? Tell us about it.
Oh, well. If you want a can of Schlitz and to throw a small ball at 9 or 10 pins. However, I got a strike my very first time.
Oh,
when
hey.
Dean and Dean came. It was a blast. Dean wanted to go, so
Yeah.
we had some Schlitz and played some candlepin, and it was pretty fun. Yeah, there's some funky little things around, but mostly it's beautiful. Plan to just spend some time on one of the beaches. There are some beautiful beaches. Really beautiful granite formations, lots of lovely hiking, and just relaxing is the best thing to do in Maine. So I'm all for that.
I like going and seeing all the lighthouses
Yes, we do. We cover quite a few lighthouses.
because there are a lot of lighthouses.
There are because of the jagged coastline
It's
and
so
everything
weird.
is a peninsula, which took me a long time to get used to because you can go so many different directions to get to the same places in a peninsula.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. So I was working on an article about all the different river lighthouses in Maine because there are all these rivers that are just these tidal rivers, and they all have lighthouses. So instead of thinking like, oh, it's a lighthouse off the coast with giant waves crashing into it, how iconic. There are these dinky little lighthouses on rivers.
Yeah, they
I love
had a
them.
lot of forts to protect the
Mm-hmm.
coastline,
Mm-hmm.
so they definitely had
You know,
lighthouses to direct the schooners
ooh,
back
what
in the
was that?
day.
We went to that really cool river lighthouse last winter. It was the Squirrel Point Lighthouse, and there were all the ice
That
flows
was
going
neat.
past it.
I
That
was
was
thinking about
neat.
that too. That was really cool.
So if you're planning on going to Maine but not in summer, go when it is icy, which sounds ridiculous. But we had so much fun in the winter in Maine. Oh, what?
We
What?
didn't get to take you ice skating on a frozen lake though, which is on the bucket list. You
Which
have to do it.
sounds really not safe for
You
me.
people don't get on there until it's 2 feet of ice at least, 2 or 3 feet frozen, and then they bring cars on and everything. It's crazy. Yeah,
Okay.
I did one. I did
That's all
it
I can
once, and
say.
it was great. It was very exciting.
Well, so I was talking to the lady from Minnesota last week, and we were talking about planning ice fishing, and she also was convinced that it's safe.
I think there's Schlitz involved in that too.
Oh yeah, there we go. Um, but no, so going back to where I was heading with that, and the lighthouses. There's lots of cool lighthouses in Mid-Coast Maine. There's lighthouses from from Portsmouth, New Hampshire, all the way up to Quebec. So you've got what 67, 75.
Oh, good for you. Yeah.
It's something insane. It's in the 60s or 70s for the number of lighthouses in Maine, and most of them have been like privately transferred, so they're not all Coast Guard lighthouses anymore. But you can visit a bunch of them, and I really enjoyed. What was the one that we went to that was so? Oh, I should have done my research. Pemaquid,
Oh, yes.
Pemaquid Point Lighthouse. That was beautiful, and that was really close to Booth Bay, also.
Yeah, Booth Bay is lovely, and that is where my favorite place is, Coastal Maine
Oh.
Botanical Gardens. I haven't been yet, so I'll have to get there in the next
Yeah,
couple
this
weeks.
year.
As springtime is springing
Mhm.
there, and it's in Booth Bay, and it's beautiful. And what's the name of the artist that does the
Oh, Thomas
huge
Dombo.
Thomas Dombo's really cool big trolls, and you can do a lovely walk through the woods, or it's very accessible
Mhm.
for people in wheelchairs.
And they've got a
or
tram that
whatever.
goes around and picks you up if you don't want to walk everywhere, because it's definitely it's the biggest botanical garden I've been to. I think it's definitely bigger than Bouchard Gardens and covers more space.
Yeah, it's a plan for 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah.
Nice place to have lunch. They just redid their little deli
Oh,
there.
is it all
so-
fancy now?
Mhm, a little
Ooh.
fancier.
Nice little garden party lunch. Yeah, I forgot that is just like one of the coolest places there.
Lots of whale tours too from there.
Yes.
That's where we got the.
Yes.
Where we saw so many whales.
That was
really neat.
wild. With lots of waterfront dining. I think that's actually that's kind of like I think maybe the best way to really get the vibe or enjoy yourself the most in Mid-Coast Maine is all of the waterfront dining in every single little town.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Rockland has some great places. Camden has some great places,
Mhm.
and Camden definitely has that very kind of gold leafed.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I was looking at some
It's
hotels
very
in
pretty.
Camden that are like $500 or $600 a night.
Oh, and there's a brand new one in Rockport as well. That's very fancy and nice.
What is the new hotel called?
It's the Rockport Harbor Hotel.
Oh, and Rockport's really cute. That's where there are those, what are they, lime kilns or something on the waterfront?
Yes, there are lime kilns on the waterfront.
And in the summertime, people jump off the dock into that cute little bay. Rockport is super cute, but it's so small.
It's very tiny. Yeah.
But that's one of the things that is so neat about dinking around and exploring all over Midcoast is all of these cute little old towns that are, exactly what you expect to see. What else? What other cool towns are there that we've stopped into? I love Camden. Camden is super cool.
Belfast is pretty.
Belfast,
Belfast
not
is
like
cool.
Ireland, but Belfast,
Yeah, there's
Maine.
some nice places to dine and
Mhm.
walk around.
And you have to go
shop,
through
straight toy
Belfast if you
store.
want to head to Acadia National Park, which you can listen to our podcast episode all about Acadia National Park with our friend Colleen, who was artist in residence there. We had a great episode about that. Yeah.
She's got her book coming out.
Her book is coming out next month, which is
Mhm,
exciting.
I just saw that.
So thinking more also about like if you were going to tell somebody, hey, come visit this summer, here is where you should stay when you come to Midcoast to be able to like see the most. Where would you place them? Would you have them start down at the bottom and stay down at the bottom? Would you have them stay at the top of MidCoast? Pick someplace in the middle? I know we
I
always
think,
stay in the middle because you guys are in the middle.
yeah, we always like to have people come into Portland because Portland, Maine is a really great little town. We
It is
feel really
cool.
lucky to have that as our main close big town. It's about an hour and a half from the Midcoast, so still has the quaint feel to it, but all the really nice restaurants and shops and that kind of thing. And then coming up to Midcoast via Freeport, where there's again more great shopping and
The LL Bean
the
boot
LL
and
Bean,
store.
which is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and lots of shops there. And just since everything's off a highway, it's kind of nice to wind around and check everything out. And then you go through Wiscasset and check all that out, and it's a beautiful, cute little town as well. And then if you want to scoop down into Booth Bay from there, you can do that as you're passing the turnoff for Booth Bay.
And Damariscotta is really pretty and cute, and it's got that nice river right there with lots of. There was like 3 different kayak rental vendors that I saw just right there.
And if you're curious about where oysters come from, there's lots of oyster farming right there at the mouth of the river there.
Oh, isn't there oyster farming in your town too?
Yes.
Like,
I'd like to learn how we can do that from our house.
yeah, because right
And
there
mussels.
where the Weaskig River goes under the bridge, and it looks like a raging river, even though it's just like a little tidal channel.
Yeah.
I always see those oyster beds, like the man-made ones out there.
And there's a super great fresh deal that you can get. There's just people that farm them right there, and they'll always just have a refrigerator that you can just drive into the driveway and grab a bag of fresh oysters and put some money in the box, and there you go. There's your
That
dinner.
is so not my thing.
I
but other people love them, so
They do.
it's interesting. It just like as I'm kind of thinking about like the winding roads and lighthouses and now oysters, it's so much like the San Juan Islands in Washington.
Kind of is.
Like
yeah.
it even feels like it when you're driving around. Like there's areas that really do feel like Orcas Island and Lopez, where it's just not a lot of people. Lopez Island, they're not really wanting there to be a lot of people, and they'll let you know.
Yep, friendly and low key, and then there's tourist season, and that's
Yeah.
where it totally changes. It quadruples in size from winter to summer, so makes a big, it's
That is
very,
insane.
yeah, it is a strong effect on those of us who live and work and commute and stuff there, but also for our incomes, because as a massage therapist, I do very little marketing, and in the summer I have a lot more clients.
Really?
So yeah, I make a lot of more money in the summer, which is why I think it makes sense to some businesses to just be open half of the year.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting part of the culture there that's been different to get used to.
That is interesting. I mean, we live in a beach town, which you come here on spring break and it's insane. And then right now it's so quiet.
Yeah.
And then in 2 weeks when school gets out all around Florida, it's insane
Yeah.
again until beginning of August, and then it's quiet again.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is, I mean, like even the Dairy Queen closes, like everything closes for half the year. So
That is so strange.
it is. It's a little different.
So when should we not visit you?
You are always welcome 24/7, 365. However,
So we've been
if
up in
you come
July,
to
August,
Maine-
and February.
Yeah, and we had a good time in February. We
was
had a
strangely
lovely
fun.
time in
Yeah.
February. But I would say Maine really shines the brightest from Memorial Day to Labor Day. And if you want to go on a little bit on either end of that is when you'll get less people, which is nice in towns that aren't used to, that much capacity. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you
it's
feel like
beautiful.
Maine has to wake up for tourist season? Like if you do get there at the beginning, are you going to be SOL for dinner?
No, people are raring to go right now. What is it, May
It's
20th or something?
I don't know what day it is.
18th?
Sometime in May.
So it's starting to wake up now. I think the Dairy Queen's open. So yeah.
So there's your gauge about how your trip is going to be. If as you're driving in and you cross the river and you see the Dairy Queen, if it's open, then everything else is fine.
Everything else is probably at least close behind.
Well, thank
Yeah.
goodness.
Yeah, no, Maine is lovely. It's very quaint. It's very quiet. There is, though, I'd really like to go to the blues and jazz festivals this summer
Is
where
that
it
in
gets a
Rockland?
little wild and crazy, which I like that occasionally.
Is that directly in Rockland?
Yes, right in Rockland.
Is it where the Lobster Fest happens?
It is. Yes.
We didn't
Oh,
even
and we
talk
have
about Lobster Fest.
Festival.
That was so much fun last
Yeah,
year.
it is kind of fun. And my son will be volunteering this year, so you can go say hi to Henry.
Is he
and
going to be
Lars
doing
and-
the lobster cooking?
I think so. Yep. Him and Lars and Trudy will be
That's
slinging
awesome.
lobster. Yeah, I think it's a fun, unique thing. And he might even go out with a friend on their lobster boat to help. He has, there's a pretty cool program where if you are grown up in a lobster family as a young person, I think they start at 11. You can start actually working towards your own lobstering license, which has to be through family and that kind of thing. So a couple of his friends are getting their own boats and
Cool.
yeah, learning to be lobster people.
So we only have another 2 minutes or so. But thinking about Lobster Fest, what is the most unusual thing that happens at Lobster Fest? Isn't there I feel like there's a lobster...
The crate race.
The crate race,
Yes.
that's what it is.
And kids train for it, and they're really good
What
at it
is
and
the
amazing.
lobster crate race?
So
Do
they
tell.
are, I think they're about 70 or 75 lobster traps floating in the water. I'm not sure exactly how they float. I think they might have a buoy
Buoys
here
or
and
something,
there.
yeah.
But you have to go fast enough that you don't sink or fall off. So there's a practice of, the kids figuring out how to go just the right speed so that they can get across them and get from end to end. And yeah.
Interesting. It's like a lumberjack festival,
Kind
but
of.
lobsters.
There is Lumberjack Annie's, right, on the way to Bar Harbor, too.
There
so
is.
There's some lobster.
And they actually do lumberjack shows and stuff.
There you go.
There you
That's
have
what
it.
we're doing when you come. There
Okay.
we go. Now we have it planned.
Excellent.
Perfect.
Well, we're going to talk more about Maine in another episode because we didn't get into Acadia. We didn't get into the Highlands, which was so much fun up in Carabasset and Sunday River. We had so much fun.
We did not find a moose, and if you
But we'll
really
talk
go
about that
there
in another
looking for
episode.
moose- Okay. Moose are actually, there was one in our neighborhood though, so they are even in MidCoast. They're just not as easy to find.
So if we give them
Great.
space within another couple of
Yes.
years, we'll start seeing them more places.
Yeah, perhaps. I hope
Good times.
they're pretty cool.
Well, thank you for joining me.
All right,
and
thanks for having me.
everybody out there, stay tuned for more of Maine because we could talk about Maine all day. And then if you're not subscribed already, go ahead and hit subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, such as Spotify, Pandora, iTunes, YouTube, all those places. That's where you'll find us. And then don't forget to give us a rating too. And if you didn't enjoy it, just, keep your words to yourself. If you thought we were fun to listen to, please do share with your friends and family and check back in for another episode down the road. Have a great rest of your day. Two Travel Dads podcast is created by Rob and Chris Taylor in St. Augustine, Florida. We'd love to answer your questions here on the podcast, providing both our experience and stories to share our own insights into whatever you're wondering about. Visit twotraveldads.com/podcast-episodes to leave your questions and to check out past episodes and show notes. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and have an awesome day.